If you are anything like me, you probably spend so much time looking at mockups, and this is not an ad segue, guys, because we're not, that's not happening. This is a low budget kind of operation, but I spend so much time looking at mockups, specifically free ones, and it is so funny to me the kinds of themes that come up. And one thing that just got me like a little bit, paused me a little bit, is cement blocks. Is anyone else just seeing, like, you just look for certain mockups and you're saying, everything's gotta be on a rock. Everything's gotta be on a cement block, it's gotta be on some sort of a rock, some sort of a rock structure. This is just my own personal observation, but I'm just thinking to myself, like, who's using these? Like, who's using iPad on cement block mockup? And that kind of got me down this path of thinking, why don't I just make a brand just for the mockup? And today we are doing the cement brick mockup. And looking into the cement brick mockup industrial complex, all right? But what brand would use that much cement? Like, what kind of brands are this industrial? Again, questions I ask myself, guys. Who's using this much cement? Who's using this many cement bricks? Doomsday bunkers, of course. It's all adding up, guys. It's all adding up. So we are making a doomsday bunker brand. I'm really excited for this one. Now, normally in this type of video, I'll do a competitor analysis. So I'll look at what other brands are doing design-wise in the space, and I'll compare them and like get information from that. But a lot of them look kind of like this, which is very it's like anti-design in a way because it's so crazy. So I thought I would actually look at real estate brands instead. But one thing I want to say first of all is there is like a market for the luxury doomsday bunker, which is really exciting. And one of them that I just see in a lot of news articles is this like big bunker complex. I think they're making it in the Czech Republic, and there's a lot of these 3D renders of this like building project, so it looks kind of like this, very billionaire-esque, because it's literally for billionaires. So there is definitely like a luxury market, and that's what I kind of wanted to gear this towards, was more of a luxury space, but I'll talk about that a bit more later when I'm developing it. So let's get into the competitor analysis. I just wanted to do a very broad overview. So interior designers, architects, building management kind of companies. And I know that you could go deep dive into each of these different sectors. They're all very specific, but I just chose ones that I thought were interesting, kind of design case studies that I felt like had something I could learn from in terms of like the graphic design. Okay, first is Frameworks, which recently had a rebrand from Studio Blackburn, which is a very big design agency in London. And I'm gonna be honest, okay guys, so I like saw this case study come up a lot like in the news. I've been seeing a lot about this like case study and this design project on different platforms. And I totally thought that they were like real estate like builders. Like I totally thought they were builders, but then I actually read something after I did this, and it turns out they just like host like WeWork spaces, like co-working spaces, but I'll read the actual description. Frameworks, founded in 2017, provides high-quality architect-designed workspaces across 12 London locations, serving organizations that range from global consultancies to NGOs. So they just like host these workspaces basically. And they recently underwent this rebrand, and it just has a real weight to it now. So they have two logos. The primary logo is this really thick Frameworks logo, sans serif, that has this upside down M and W, which people are yapping on and on about this upside down W. I don't know, whatever. The design critiques make me laugh. Like I love like reading design blogs and like everybody's got an opinion. And you know what? What I like to say is you're allowed to have an opinion. Everyone is always allowed to have an opinion. You're just not always allowed to voice it, which I think is a really great way to kind of go through life. Frameworks has this primary logo and then this secondary logo, which is the serif that is a frame. So this is why I thought they were builders, because it's like a frame, like when you put up a house. So, you know, obviously it's like literally in the frame, which at first it makes you pause. You think, okay, what is this two very different logos happening? But I feel like it works. Like I feel like they made it work. You have this like big bold typography in certain places, and then you just add this kind of like it feels like a flourish to have this like little framework, like classy framework frame thrown onto things. And they got their color palette from their workspaces, so like actual colors from the buildings, which are like a bit bright. Like it just feels kind of modern, and it's not like stuffy. It feels kind of playful with these sans serifs, and it's like utilitarian, very bold, very, you know, quite structured with this thick sans serif that they use for their copy. And I really like it. And I also think the motion has a personality to it that's like feels professional, but also we're adding a little emotion to be a little bit playful, right? And I also just want to shout out the mat because I just think that's really funny and like it's a great touch. And of course we got a classy tote bag. I am a sucker for a tote bag mock-up. Next up is Hjem by Netlife, which is a Norwegian company. So, okay, don't come for me for my Norwegian pronunciation if you're not Norwegian. If you are Norwegian, like feel free to comment, leave a hate comment. But if you're not Norwegian, shut your mouth. So Hjem means house in Norwegian, and I'll read this quote. Hjem, developed by Norway's leading real estate agencies, promises a more specialized and intelligent solution to buying a home. And they use this mascot that's named Bo, and I think Bo means life in Norwegian. And it's like this cute, playful little house, this little orange house. And in the case study, they talk a lot about the element of magic. So Bo is like a magical kind of element, like sprinkling in magic, and they use a lot of animations of this like fun house and the house's friends, and they're helping you along. So it's almost like your real estate agent or your like assistant is meant to be this house when you're using the app interface and when you're searching for real estate. And they really stick hard to this like kind of light, creamy orange color, which this is so like, I appreciate we're going in a different direction. Like, it's playful, it's fun. When you think of real estate, you don't think of something being playful or fun, but they really committed to it. And mascots are not something you would expect from the real estate genre, so I do like that kind of push, and the animation is really fun and playful, so it's just like bringing playfulness into real estate. So this is Studio Giancarlo Valle. Again with the pronunciation, guys, like, I'm sorry, I wake up every morning and I have a Canadian accent. So this is a lot of copy to like wrap myself around, so I'll just read this introductory quote as well. Studio Giancarlo Valle is an award-winning design practice dedicated to creating spaces that are playful, studied, and unexpected. The studio's holistic approach encompasses architecture, interiors, and the decorative arts. So one thing they're known for is like using tactical things like scale models to model different things, and there's a lot of like sketching involved. And so for the logo, they actually vectorized the designer sketches, and they used like these different illustrations throughout the design, so the design identity. And it just has this very classy feel to it. Like, this is a classy design practice, and everything feels like kind of vintage and analog and very tactile as well. And the colors come together really well. And I just really liked, you know, these illustrative qualities, these kind of hand-drawn qualities, and these really cool applications of the logo, especially in the embossings. And they use the embossings in different ways. And even the website feels very editorial, and it looks like you're almost reading a book or you're reading a catalog when you're on the website. So it's just very elevated and very like high-end. And this is something that really inspires me for the brand that I actually ended up creating. Okay, next is Mesh, which is an architecture firm. So Mesh wanted to make architecture less intimidating to potential clients. So they went for a kind of open and inviting brand identity. And one of the things they did for this is they created a logo that changes shape. So it's actually these two cubes that are connected to each other. And it's meant to represent the relationship between an architect and a client, as well as three-dimensional spaces. And it kind of looks like an M as well, with the way that they like have the carving out of it, which I thought was really cool to like create a space through the logo, and it's not an easy thing to do. And also to create something that feels like a three-dimensional form when it's actually like entirely flat. And they use like this really nice color palette of these kind of like dustier tones. And it just feels like, especially with this typography as well, with the really deep ink traps, it does feel more approachable. I will say like the whole, you know, this style of typeface is like not my taste, but I do see kind of the language that it's using of being more inviting, and like the way that that comes off. So yeah, Mesh is an interesting one. And lastly is Union. So Union like manages co-working spaces with landlords to, I guess, like establish that and lease it and stuff like that, which I don't know, guys, some of this stuff I'm like, so you manage the co-working space, you host the co-working, there's a in-between, like there's a I don't know what the industry. Union was done by 2x Elliott, which I just, as an agency, I really like. And they went for a super stripped back, kind of elegant, confident, you know, very simple, modern approach to this. I really like the logo type. I like the logo itself. It's meant to be shapes that are overlaid, unioned, and like subtracted. So the shape itself is like a union of shapes. And it's just very clean and industrial, and it feels serious. And when you are spending a lot of money on something, like being a landlord trying to rent out co-working spaces, you want something that is very serious, so they really like hit that. And they really committed to this stripped back color palette, which I think is hard to do because a lot of times like we're throwing in different colors, we're doing different things here and there, but they really said we are sticking to this gray, black, white color palette, and it just comes off like really, really clean. So for the brand that I'm developing, it's luxury doomsday bunkers that you can customize as a client. And we're not using the word doomsday bunkers. We're doing a lot of talking around, a lot of kind of pondering around the subject of the doomsday bunker. Which, when you see like actual doomsday bunker companies and people who create them, it's very strong and sturdy and masculine. A lot of them are American companies. And it's very like war, like the guy who has a bunch of guns in his basement, like this type of, I'm thinking of the guy from The Last of Us who like had his whole compound, like that's what I'm thinking of. So yeah, this is the type of audience and this is the type of person, but we're going for something that is for that kind of billionaire audience, which is why I have Brian Johnson, the guy who's really rich and trying to live forever. If you know, you know. That's why he's on my vision board. He's kind of my North Star of this kind of like really rich, but like classy kind of person. So when I'm talking about the language of this brand, I'm really interested in things like sanctuaries, like longevity is a word I think is really interesting because people throw that around a lot, versus survival. So we're not using the word survival, we're not using these dark words or these scary words, we're using these very like goop words, like longevity, like comfort, like sanctuary, like underground sanctuary, like that's where we're going with the copy, and that's where we're going when we're kind of building out the concept. And so for the actual visuals, I love like a nice serif, a very classy serif, some really kind of editorial grid systems as well, and very nice, kind of cozy, comforting, like interior design photography. Now this one on the right-hand side with the like strips, it's to me reminiscent of like film strips. I think that's kind of what they were going for. But I thought this was very, very interesting because these strips sort of reminded me of going underground and like the kind of elevator or the walkway underground and like how you're going linearly down. And what if we use that concept in the actual design of it? And maybe something spatial, like how do we create the feeling of you're in something that's underground, maybe you're in a space, like you're in kind of a pod or something that's comfortable, maybe something to do with movement, something to do with like just spatially we're moving downwards and we're feeling comfortable though at the same time. So you can see how there's all these concepts kind of floating around in my mind, and now we're gonna actually go into the Figma board, which is where I designed this. So the first thing I'm thinking is, what if we show the journey underground? Like underground is the destination, and we did that through gradients. I love gradients as a storytelling device. I think it's a very interesting concept to me. You know, there's certain things when you're a designer that you just like keep going back to, like we're running this one back. And when it comes to gradients as a storytelling device, it's so nebulous. But when it comes to gradients as a storytelling device, we're running that one back over and over again, guys. So I thought, okay, what if it's like the gradient is the layers of earth? And this is like, just stick with me here, guys, stick with me. So the gradient is the layers of earth. So it's like the blue sky when we're above. And then you're going through grass into dirt, back, because we have to repeat the gradient, so I guess it's grass and dirt again. And then blue on the other side, which is like, the blue is the light of your sanctuary, it's the light of your bunker. And that looked like shit, like, it looked bad. So the whole like green thing, I was like, this is not working. And I wanted to do this kind of like warm color palette, like bringing in these sort of like burnt ochre, green colors, tan colors. And yeah, this whole like kind of grass thing wasn't working, so I thought, okay, what if I switch gears? And I did like maybe just a blue, so it's like the light of the sky into the darkness of the ground and the earth, and then back into the light of the bunker. So it's like the light of the daylight, the darkness of the ground, the light of your underground bunker. Which metaphorically as well is like moving through challenging times. So you're in your normal life, which is like the light blue, then the darkness of the apocalypse. Euphemistically, in this sort of case, when we're talking about branding, the darkness is challenging times, which is the bombs are dropping, guys, okay? So the darkness, and then the light is coming into your bunker, which is your comfortable space, which you designed using longevity spaces, which is the name of the brand. Again, I love the word longevity, I think it's really interesting. Now for the typography, normally I'm going on and on trying to decide on typography, but there was just like a sturdiness to this typeface that I really liked. And it, you know, this angularity, I was like, it kind of reminds me of like chiseling, maybe cement or like chiseling, you know, stone, even though it's not necessarily where you're kind of going for, but I still just felt like there's a sturdiness that looks good in this semi-bold weight that doesn't necessarily look as good with other typefaces. So I thought, let's just go with this. It has some strength to it. And here I'm doing the kind of web layout because I just started and I was like, is this gonna work? Like, maybe I'll just do some layouts just to see. And that's what I did. So I started with like a potential web layout of like using a strip and then maybe a layout that ended up being this poster. So I'm trying to design these posters and, you know, incorporate these images that I found. And these are just stock photos from Unsplash. So I just looked up interior design on Unsplash and I got all these photos. And you have to do quite a bit of sifting, but like I got some here. Using these neutral tones, which originally I really wanted to incorporate like those warm reds and those greens into the design itself. And I kept trying to make that happen, guys. Like I kept being like, let's see if we can put a green in this one. Like, let's see if we can make this work. It just wasn't. So in the end, you'll see that for my outcomes, I went with more like kind of tan colors for the secondary color. But yeah, I was trying to do this whole burnt ochre thing. But even though that's not in the color palette for my actual like design outcomes, that still was able to come through in the imagery that I used. So I was able to have, you know, these kind of warm spaces depicted in these photos and also these green colors depicted in the interior design of the photos, which was really nice in the end. So yeah, I was just playing around with the different colors, seeing like maybe I could put blue here, I could put, you know, this different copy in different places, you know, trying to come up with the copy I wanted to use, thinking of words like forever home I really liked because your bunker would be your forever home in the apocalypse, but you know, that's kind of the thing that you're indirectly saying. I just think it's really funny copy to call your bunker your forever home. And also adding in different copy, which you'll see in a bit, to these posters, and just from some research I did of these bunker companies, so things like, you know, I wanted these spaces to have really nice lighting even though it's underground, so it feels like it's daylight lighting, and also you have really good air filters for the fallout, you know, really nice reinforced concrete so you're safe in it, these different things that are like selling points, right? So incorporating those as well. Next is this billboard design. So I had this really great bedroom photo and I was thinking maybe I could use the blue as a frame in different ways, and you'll see like I'm trying different things here, which obviously like I'm always doing, thinking how can I apply these different like graphic elements to this particular layout or this particular mock-up. So in this case, I tried doing these borders and then I tried doing like a different type of frame, but I went back to the borders, which I ended up really liking. And you know, that was something that on the website, you have these borders going down, and then on these different design pieces, you can use that motif as well. One thing that I was just playing around with here is the legibility of the text. So this is white text, and then the background is this kind of tan color. It's quite light and there's different stuff going on. So I tried to do this kind of gradient faded thing with some blue in the background, which you'll see I'm doing here, but I ultimately changed that to a tan. So that's one thing you can do if you have like a background that's a bit more complicated, is have a gradient fading in that is maybe similar to the background, and then that way it takes away some of the noise of that and it makes the letters stand out, especially if they're white. And you can also do this in a very subtle way, which in that final outcome you'll see like it's applied very subtly. I also wanted to do a little like ID tag. In this case, you'll see there's a stacked logo type. And this is kind of like when you're doing the showroom and the person who works there is like scanning in to like go to the showroom bunkers, I guess. And maybe like if you have a bunker, that's your key or something like that. And next I did a business card, which of course we did the business card on the cement block. I know that's right, okay? And this was like, again, like you kind of just adding the gradient to this, doing something very simple. The business card has to mention that it's a bunker company, right? So we have underground sanctuaries, I think it's underground sanctuary something. And the actual tagline for longevity spaces is find longevity through comfort, which just relates to the idea of being comfortable in the end times and having longevity, which is like just survival is longevity, right? So I did quite a bit of trial and error with the stationery. I thought stationery was very classy. You know, a stationery mockup felt very classy for this category. And I really like doing this like I guess pamphlet, promotional pamphlet with the blue borders, which looks pretty cool. And then I also have just the stationery for the company that like you would write on whatever they would send out, and then added the business cards and an envelope. And you'll see here it just says envelope mockup because I just had the photo and I wanted to see how it would look in the layout. And I wanted to do like a nice embossing, which, you know, it feels very luxury to do an embossing, right? And I ended up actually doing like a tan envelope and incorporating more of this tan color into different parts of the design, which is referential to the photography. A lot of it is kind of like beige. Maybe it's a little bit of a cooler tone beige actually. And I also had a blue paper for the paper inside the envelope because it's a little bit different and it's part of the gradient colors. So the more I went on, the more I kind of like ditched all these other secondary colors and just leaned into the gradient colors, which was the different blues. Okay, lastly I wanted to tote bag, and I was loving this tote bag mock-up because I was like, this is the person who, like, the sirens just went off and you're going in the elevator like down to your bunker and you just happen to have your tote bag. Like, that's like, you're that girl and you're just like wearing a really expensive like classy outfit and you have your longevity spaces tote bag as like the bombs are dropping, you know what I mean? So I thought this was really cute, and just incorporating like the stripes again, and I ended up doing it in more of a stripes on black, which I hadn't done before. So something that's just a little bit different, and using the stacked logo type in a way that kind of worked out with it. But yeah, that is Longevity Spaces. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Just making a brand just for the mock-up, just for the love of the game. But comment down below if there's anything else you guys want to see, and I'll show you guys the outcomes now. But thanks for watching.